Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're checking out this monogreen halfling ramp deck, but really it's an Eldrazi deck in disguise. Our commander is the Notary Hobbits, a 5-mana 1/1. When it enters, if they're not a token, we get to create 2 tokens that are copies of them, except they're not legendary, and all 3 of them can tap, generating a colorless mana for each halfling we control. So if all 3 of them survive, they'll be able to tap for 9 additional mana on the following turn, which is often enough to cast whatever huge Eldrazi Titan we want, and once cast, those tend to win the game. So then if we take a look at our deck breakdown, I've split it up into a few different categories, starting with early mana acceleration, because we do want to get to 5 mana to cast our commander as soon as possible. And then we've got our additional halfling cards, halfling in quotes, since there's only 2 other halfling creatures, but we do have some shapeshifters and changelings that can also contribute towards the Notary Hobbits tapping for even more than 3 mana each. Then we've got our haste enablers, because being able to give our mana creatures and especially our commander haste means we can immediately tap them for a ton of mana, so we can cast something impactful on the same turn where we get them in play. And then we've got our doubling effects, which are sometimes overkill, but these help us generate 4 halfling tokens as opposed to just 2, so then now with 5 halfling creatures we can potentially generate 25 mana on the following turn, between doubling the ETB trigger with Panharmonicon and Roaming Throne, or just doubling the number of tokens we generate with Parallel Lives and Doubling Season. And then we've got our finishers, and these include some green tutor effects to put whatever creature we want onto the battlefield, often going for Craterhoof Behemoth if we need to end the game on the spot, but then of course we have all our colorless Eldrazi Titans between Kozilek, Ulamog and Emrakul, and even some newer additions like Galactus, which are also very good since they even trigger when searched up and not necessarily cast. And then our miscellaneous section has a couple more card draw effects, as well as the Leyline of Abundance, which is also quite nice with our other mana creatures and the Notary Hobbits, as they'll now generate an additional green mana every time as well. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Anina, blue-green X spells. Our hand's decent, missing a 1 mana accelerant, but we've got a Banter Mole on 2. And then Flare of Cultivation. Can maybe set up some hasty Notary Hobbits. So then especially if we draw some expensive colorless spell, we can immediately cast it. Opponent does have the turn 1 Elvish Mystic. Emrakul the draw. Alright, so if we get the Hobbits to stick the landing, we've got a pretty nice follow-up. Opponent has a turn 2 Anina. So yeah, we've got some catching up to do. Could also play the Lightning Greaves and then next turn maybe even Earthbend onto the fetch land. Do we prefer that? No, let's just play the Cub. So we'll pass. Opponent's gonna steal my Banter Mole Cub. Well, I guess now Accursed Marauder is a bit of a nombo with the Melody, since we can just sacrifice the Banter Mole Cub. So I guess that kind of worked out. Alright, so this turn, just gonna Flare of Cultivation. And then next turn we can play the Hobbits. Troyan makes 2 mana to cast their X-cost spells. And Parallel Lives to draw. Also tempting. But assuming the Hobbits survive, we'll already get to cast our Eldrazi without making extra tokens. And I cannot go Parallel Lives plus Lightning Greaves, which would really be the dream. Could Rhythm for 1, play Lightning Greaves, but yeah, I don't think that really makes a difference. Just play the Hobbits, keep it simple. Alright, opponent with a large ornate imitations. Puts in Coma and a whole bunch of other stuff. Scoundrel, Jorkadin, Pledge Mage, Resto Angel, Stalwart, the Kraken, and Atraxa Grand Unifier. That's quite the board. Although it doesn't look like they'll be able to answer my hobbits. So we'll still get to cast Emrakul next turn. Take one. I guess they can Court of Calling, perhaps. They have 3 untapped green creatures, so yeah, they can certainly court for something. But yeah, we've got 9 mana from the Hobbits, 6 more from my lands, so that casts the biggest creature in Magic. Get to take an extra turn, and then get to play Ulamog, or we could Rhythm for like a Craterhoof Behemoth. Alrighty, Innkeeper generates extra mana, since then all my hobbits will tap for 4. So what's next? Can play an Ulamog and give it haste. That seems pretty good. Our opponent now maybe going for Court of Calling for 7. So they get a bunch more triggers, including Anina. Which generates the Westwind Avatar. Okay. So they certainly have a lot of random stuff they can sacrifice to Annihilator. And our opponent's putting their own Emrakul into play. Okay. So Ulamog entered with 8 counters. I get to play Ice Still into Lightning Greaves. Not that this really matters. So how much Annihilator do we have total? 6 plus another 8 is 14. Gotta hope that's enough. Can put more random permanents onto the battlefields. Because our opponent's gonna be hitting us back. So then I could still Rhythm for 1. And get a random Birds of Paradise. Can technically trump an Emrakul. Give Ulamog haste. And smash. And yeah, they did tap most of their creatures for Court of Calling. So they don't have as many blockers back now. So sacrifice 14 permanents, please. Alright, opponent gets rid of all their lands. And yep, they still kept a pretty nice board. Atraxa, Coma, Emrakul, although Emrakul has to block. So they might have been better off keeping the Avatar. So Emrakul and Ulamog trade, opponent falls to 7. So yeah, the game's not over. Can protect my Emrakul maybe. And pass. They still have 5 mana here. So can they mount a comeback? Next turn, Nature's Rhythm can just get a Craterhoof, which will certainly be enough. So Atraxa and Koma attack. Koma gets to make 3/3 Serpent tokens, but yeah, that's fine. Can just take 15. And now a variable solutions. Anina gets this 4 mana 3/3 and a Javelineer. So they blew up my Lightning Greaves, it seems. Javelineer does not have a ton of instants and sorceries in the graveyard. Takes out the Ice Still. Alright, so we just wanna Nature's Rhythm for Greater Hoof, I imagine. So X equals 8. So we have just enough to cast that. And then we'll just tap the birds for a green. Get the hoof. And smash. And they get to sacrifice another 6 permanents. Well, this was quite the game. Our opponent's taking a total of 20 Annihilator and still preserving a bit of a board state, so that's impressive. But yeah, the Notary Hobbits eventually go the distance. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Facing Tony Stark and the Invincible Iron Man. My hand is all ramp and no payoff, so that's not quite gonna cut it here. And this is better. Hopefully we get to cast Ulamog. The Halfling's great, so is Innkeeper, although possible I want to flare just to play around spot removal, taking them out. Yeah, since we have 2 halfling creatures, maybe this is the way to go. And then Lightning Greaves is very nice. Don't really want to waste the treasure on it. So this turn I could go Innkeeper, pass, and then next turn Hobbits, or we can play the Greaves. The next turn maybe Nissa, play land, play Innkeepers, and then turn after, assuming Innkeepers is still alive, the Hobbits can make 12 mana, which is still enough to cast an Ulamog on that very same turn, thanks to the haste. Can also swap the order of Greaves and Innkeeper, to be fair. But yeah, if they're holding up a Lightning Bolt, now they don't get to use it. Opponent with a Cryogen Relic to draw. And a Mox Opals, not quite online. A Llanowar Elves can immediately make mana. So start there. And give it haste. Make a mana, play Nissa. Play a land, make a mana. Play Innkeeper. And then Nissa. Probably the creature I want to protect the most, although the Innkeeper's probably more valuable here. Yeah, you know what? Let's protect the Innkeeper. I want to protect the Hobbits, or the Halfling. Foundry Inspector to discount their artifacts. So they still have mana for Mox Opal available. So yeah, Counterspell would be rough, but I gotta try since I don't have any other options. That resolves. And then we've got the mana to play either one of our finishers here. Maybe they do have 1 spot removal spell. Alright, they did have the Lightning Bolt after all. And yeah, thanks to the Mox they were able to cast it. I'm glad I moved the equipment onto the real hobbits, so I still have a chance of maybe casting them next turn, as opposed to our opponent taking out a token. So yeah, with 7 mana, I do not have enough green to recast the hobbits right now, so then we'll have to wait, and I will offer the trade. Alright, so our opponent can maybe play Iron Man and cheat something into play that decimates my board. Hedron Archive is still fine. The One Ring to protect him is acceptable. And they will draw. So they are tapped out. Okay, let's do some damage. So I get to play the Notary Hobbits before tapping any for mana. So I can easily cast both of my finishers here. That's 18, 24. So destroy target permanents. Probably destroy the Hedron Archive. And then Galactus could exile target permanents, so could also get rid of the One Ring. Do we prefer Inspector, maybe? Exiling the One Ring is pretty neat. So I'll do that. And then giving haste to Annihilator is still relevant, because Annihilator doesn't target our opponents. And yeah, opponent has to sack 4 permanents and scoops it up. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Raph and Mikey, Troublemakers. Alright, opponent might be the one in trouble this time, as we get to start with Elvish Mystic into Badger Mole Cub. And most Raph and Mikey decks, to my knowledge, do not run sweepers. Alright, they are getting lucky with the Gemstone Caverns, so that certainly gives them a chance. And I do still need to draw an extra land, ideally. They've got an Exploration. Less powerful after having pitched a card to the gemstone, but opponent still had 2 lands left, so 3 lands on turn 1. That's impressive. And they're not done yet, so yeah, possible their hand's just that good, and they'll potentially even get to play Raph and Mikey next turn with a ritual effect. So I might have to eat my words. Alright, this turn, Badger Mole Cub into Explore looks good. Probably no need to Earthbend onto the fetch land. Alright, I mean, Emrakul is a nice curve topper if we can get to it. Opponent cultivates. I should be able to survive 1 attack from Raph and Mikey. So then, depending on what they cheat out, I'll get to untap with the mana to cast one of my Eldrazi. But yeah, impressively, our opponent is the one that's gonna get to cast their commander. And before we get to slam some huge Eldrazi down. Possible I want to chump with a Badger Mole, you never know. Although it does help the Hobbits tap for extra mana as well. So there's Raph and Mikey. What do they get? Is it an Emrakul? It is. So this is only 22 damage that we can take. And now it's my turn. And yeah, we've got all the Eldrazi Titans in hand here. So the Notary Hobbits tap for 4 mana each. So we definitely want to start with Emrakul. So we get to take an extra turn. Now I can safely attack. And our opponent gives us the sleepy emoji after cheating Emrakul into play themselves. That's pretty ironic. But yeah, next turn we get to attack Annihilator 6, in addition to maybe blowing up some additional permanents with Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. So yeah, we are definitely winning this game. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, and I'm getting teary-eyed facing Hei Bai after 2 Brawl videos where we missed him. This hand has potential. We've got the Leyline with Badger Mole. So then our Earthbended land will tap for 3 mana. So we can set up a turn 3 Notary Hobbits if there's no interaction. Castle Garenbrig, the draw. So I actually think we want to fetch up a Wastes here. So we have double colorless for Kozilek. That's why they're in the deck. So yeah, hoping they cannot remove the Earthbended land, since we don't have an amazing backup plan otherwise. Hei Bai finds the Life's Origin, so one of the better hits. Alright, so next up, play the Notary Hobbits. And hope to untap with them. Could even play the Maskwood Nexus to get access to 2 more halfling creatures on our side. Sphere of Safety is interesting. Makes it harder for us to attack, but we can easily pay for it, so not actually the most effective card against us. Alrighty, so now sequencing is important. So my land taps for 3, 4, play Maskwood, which nets me mana overall. And then, yeah, we can easily play Kozilek with the Notary Hobbits, of course. And the Hobbits also make extra mana thanks to the Badger Mole Cub. Can use a castle. And then we first want to empty our hand a little bit more. Play Sire. A library. A Glimpse. Could have also played Sire maybe before tapping all my Hobbits. But yeah, I think we'll be okay. And then now cast Kozilek to refuel. So that's fine. And then we can still play Lightning Greaves for haste. Do I want to cast anything else? Can also just activate the Maskwood Nexus. Because I do want to keep some numbered cards in hand to maybe counter with Kozilek. And then, do we prefer 12 or 7 with a lifelink? I guess we'll go for the lifelink attack here. I guess I also need to pay for Sphere of Safety, so I guess never mind, I'm unable to attack here. In that case, yeah, I'm still happy with the Lightning Greaves on Sire. And pass it back. Probably forgot to activate Library while holding 7 cards in hand. I think we'll be alright. Alright, opponent does have a Sweeper, and it's a 5-drop, so I cannot counter that with Kozilek. Yeah, that's a setback. So nothing else I can do here. If my next card is a 5-drop, not activating a library maybe cost me the game. It was a Green Suns. Alright, so what's next? I can still cast the Notary Hobbits here, if I do not activate library, thanks to Castle Garenbrig. So, yeah, that seems like a good starting point. Can give the tokens haste to still activate Maskwood Nexus. And then... yeah, how does this work? I guess I can still Green Suns. But I'm not going to be able to attack and pay for Sphere very easily. Yeah, the extra green from Leyline is quite useful. And then I can Green Suns for up to 10 here. I guess I cannot get any colorless 10 drops like Galactus, only green creatures. But yeah, I could still get like a Regal Force to refuel. Or I could get chomping for the Sphere of Safety. I like the Regal Force. So then I could have played Provisioner first to put an extra green creature on the battlefield. So, yeah, no real point in moving the boots since we can't attack into the sphere. Have to discard to hand size. And then next turn we can once again draw with Library first. I'm kind of happy our opponent casts a sweeper, so we get to play a longer game. And then Nature's Rhythm doesn't have the limitation of only getting green cards, so we can more easily get some of our colorless creatures like Galactus. Now, sadly, we drew Craterhoof, so they're making it too tempting to just blow up the sphere and attack for lethal. But let's see here. So I can play Mutavaults, which then lets me activate Library. And then I can play Fanatic, give it haste with the boots. Probably fine to activate Castle. Move Lightning Greaves. This makes extra mana with Leyline as well. Can activate the Mutavaults. So we have an extra halfling on the battlefield. Move to the Notary. Could first activate Masquid as well to make one more halfling. Keep making more mana. And then Nature's Rhythm, maybe get a Chomping Changeling for the Sphere. And then Craterhoof for lethal. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Baron Helmut Zemo, Mono Black Devotion. Not going to be an easy matchup, since we can expect him to have quite a bit of removal to slow us down, especially board wipes can be painful. Although, then again, board wipes are not super synergistic in the Devotion deck. But yeah, this hand's probably too slow, too many curve toppers. This I can try. At least a ramp that puts lands in place, less susceptible to interaction. And then Beast Whisper can maybe help us draw. The curve toppers are taken care of. So now it's all about getting the Hobbits in play. A Library of Alexandria is interesting. I mean, we've got line 5 lined up, so I don't feel the need to play the Green Suns. Can play the Beast Whisper as a distraction. And it looks like it'll soak up a removal spell. Bitter Triumph. And our opponent not discarding anything. So they could play the Baron. Goes for Lightning Greaves, so they can better protect it. And reanimates my own Beast Whisper, fair enough. And that I can live with. More Emrakul. Okay, play the Hobbits, and then hopefully at least 2 of them survive. Darkness Crystal is acceptable. So I get to untap, and then we'll have access to quite a bit of mana. Could also Green Suns for 1 get another halfling, which basically adds an extra mana for me. It's not super necessary. Can just cast whatever I want here. And Emrakul, the Promised End, seems like a fine starting point. And then Sylvan Library as well. And see what they're working with. Alright, so I now control my opponent. They have an Invoke Despair, a Rahl, a Liliana. So what's the most damage I can do here? Play Liliana. And then... yeah, the -3 is not a May ability. So I do need a target in the graveyard. Invoke Despair. Probably not worth casting. So then I can Rahl, and again I cannot use a -2 if there's no targets. But I can make my opponent discard a card. Alright, that's the play. Any number of target players discard a card. And then I will not be targeting me, but I will get rid of probably the Invoke Despair here. Alright, that seems pretty decent. And then of course Beast Whisper attacks into Emrakul, goes without saying. Alright, so now our opponent gets to take their real turn. Brawl surveils. Can still maybe hope to set up Liliana. And there's a Baron with haste, but the devotion's not quite enough to boast. We get to untap. And yeah, we should be able to end the game here one way or another. Can play another Emrakul, steal their stuff, or I can Green Suns for Crater of Behemoth. Getting the 10 rings in play would be fun too. So options aplenty. But let's just put them out of their misery. And get a hoof. And that'll do it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Rofellos, a Llanowar Emissary. I was curious to see how this matchup would play out. Rofellos, of course, the more broken commander, since it comes down on turn 2. But Hobbits can maybe go over the top, if we can get it down soon enough. And this hand has potential, especially with a priest being an elf. And tracking other elves on the battlefield. Can try to hang on to the Disciple for now, but most likely going to be played as well. Opponent with a crop rotation on turn 1. Ooh, okay, so they're on the Thespian stage build. Because yeah, usually Rofellos is paired with a lot of forests, but in this case they've got a different approach. So yeah, can start with Shang-Chi. Our opponent's not going to be able to play Rofellos next turn. So maybe the curve is going to be Shang-Chi into Pilgrimage, into Hobbits. We'll see. And yeah, now Sylvan's Scrying, so they can get Dark Depths to make their 20/20. So they still won't be able to do it next turn, but the turn after. So can I cast an Ulamog in the meantime is a question. Yeah, I think I can. It's actually still going to be close. Because I can play the Pilgrimage. Next turn cast the Hobbits, and then I'll have 9 mana. Which is 1 shy of casting Ulamog. But our opponent still needs 2 turns to get their Dark Depths going. So now they play Rofellos. Could wait on the Hobbits, but there's no real reason to. Now Priest is free, since they added an elf to the board. So then we can still play the Notary Hobbits. But then, yeah, we're 1 mana short of casting Ulamog, but next turn we can just go for Emrakul. And do I want to attack? I guess it's fine at this point, if they want to trade for Rofellos. If they can give the 20/20 haste, I guess we still only take 20 damage, so we're not dead on the board. And yeah, they actually had a Lightning Greaves. So they can make their Merit Lage token. And then attack me for 20. I fall to 4. But turns out we've got the perfect solution in hand with Emrakul. So yeah, we get to take an extra turn, and then I get to play Ulamog as well to exile 2 more permanents, but the Annihilator will already take care of their entire board. Because yeah, Ulamog by itself would not have done it with Shroud, would not have been able to target their Merit Lage token, so we really needed Emrakul here. It's a pretty unconventional game against Rofellos. Usually expect to see this turn 2, and then we're immediately under pressure. Opponents had a slightly different approach here with Sylvan's Scrying crop rotation, so they might have more land tutors to try and assemble this combo. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Tom Bombadil, a 5-color Saga deck. What do we think of our hand? It's light on acceleration, just have the Green Suns, which can maybe get a mana elf. But then Shang-Chi into Hobbits lets us immediately cast Ugin, which is pretty strong. So I guess we'll try it. Can even cast a Portal to Phyrexia afterwards. Sadly don't have Dried Arbor on Arena for Green Suns to get on turn 1. But maybe we'll get something like a Badger Mole Cub. Opponent with the Shared Roots. Possible they're running a bunch of sweepers themselves. So I'll wait on the Green Suns so we can do it for 2. Opponent cultivates, so next turn they can play Tom. Although it tends to be a little bit more effective if you already have some sagas on the battlefield, from what I recall. Alright, no shortage of curve toppers. So yeah, we can just Green Suns for 2. And get a Badger Mole Cub. Makes sense. Could also go for Rofellos with 2 forests on the battlefield. Doesn't really cast anything else. But it is powerful. Can get another forest with my fetch land. Badger Mole Cub still helps me cast Hobbits next turn, and then the Hobbits tap for an extra mana each. Can also make the same case for the Prosperous Innkeeper. Maybe Innkeeper makes the most sense, because if they do have a sweeper, then at least we'll still have a treasure left over, even if Innkeeper doesn't have any synergy with Shang-Chi. And then I do not get to go Hobbits into Ulamog, but I can play the Hobbits into Ugin or Portal to Phyrexia. And then the Hobbits will all tap for 4 mana, so that's enough to cast whatever curve topper I want. Alright, opponents with a Witch's Vanity here to destroy Shang-Chi. So now the Hobbits will not be able to tap for mana right away. So yeah, that's a big setback. So yeah, I mean, still gonna play them here. Just gotta hope that they do not get removed. And now the drawback of getting Innkeeper is that we used our treasure. But yeah, we do now have 4 halfling creatures on the battlefield. Nykthos also looking good. So really just hoping to dodge a sweeper. Kiorabas the Sea God starts by making a Kraken. It's chapter 2 we're most scared of. Tapping our stuff down. Alright, so we have a turn where we get to kind of combo off. And how do we want to approach it? I can play Priest of Titania, which also ups my devotion for Nykthos, and then the passage will be untapped. I guess we also had the Disciple. And then activate Nykthos. And then I think we go Ugin into Ulamog. Exile your Saga. Let's see, I have 13 plus 3 is 16 mana, so yeah, a little bit short of both Ulamog and Portal to Phyrexia. But yeah, we can wait on the portal, just cast Ulamog, and then Ugin can draw. Find a summon Bahamut, could also come in handy, but yeah, let's go for Ulamog here. And then we get to exile the Entity Tracker. And pass a turn. Alright, let's see if they maybe find a board wipe to recover from this. We'll still have an Ugin on the battlefield. Maybe a one-sided sweeper. Like one of the blue ones to bounce my stuff. Could save them. For now, Sithis. And then down to Goblin Town. So they get to take one of my cards. And we have some nice ones in hand. Opponent takes Portal to Phyrexia. And what's their answer to Ulamog? We'll have Annihilator 7 if we get to attack. Alright, Elspeth's Nightmare can deal with one of the Notary Hobbits. And, yeah. Ugin can keep plussing, can cast Summon Bahamut. Even play the Mutable Explorer first to get another Hobbit on the battlefield, or Halfling. Can even activate my Mutavault to increase that number. Also adds another elf for Priest of Titania, so there's a lot of synergy there. Activate Nykthos. Cast Summon Bahamut, maybe actually wait on Nykthos. Because I want to do Summon Bahamut. Yeah, this is a little tricky. I guess I hadn't played a land yet. So yeah, then I can Summon Bahamut. Like so. Destroy Sithis. Attack with Ulamog, and then second main I get to do more stuff. So blow up your Nightmare. And then the Disciple can go digging for more cards. On the off chance that they can get out of this mess. But yeah, next turn we could also ultimate Ugin and get whatever Eldrazi we want. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, and triple Emrakul is quite impressive, but sadly not what you want to see in your opener. This one is a little bit better. The Lightning Greaves can help us give all the Hobbits haste one by one to cast an Ugin on the same turn. Currently only have Priest of Titania to speed things up. So, alright, Birds of Paradise was a great top deck. And seeing an elf on the other side also makes Priest of Titania more effective. So is there an argument for playing Lightning Greaves over Priest? Can protect the birds and then move the Greaves onto Titania. We'll see what else they do here. Bristly Bill already a 4-4. Because yeah, if I play the Priest and our opponent has a removal spell, that could be bad. I sort of want the Lightning Greaves in play before playing the Hobbits anyway. Even though I could play Priest and then next turn play the Hobbits. I wouldn't be able to play Ugin. So then it kind of feels like running out to Lightning Greaves is kind of a free roll. Unless, of course, it gets tagged by some artifact removal. Okay, and then pass a turn. So unless they play 2 more elves, I'm not going to be able to play the Hobbits yet. I'll take 4. And a Utopia Sprawl we can also cast. Don't want to play Yavimaya since it might help the opponent in preserving their fetch lands. Play Priest, move the Lightning Greaves. So I would have 4 mana here, which is not quite enough. But next turn we get to play the Hobbits, and one by one move the Lightning Greaves so they can tap for 3, which in turn sets up Ugin. Opponent had a pretty uneventful turn here. Their own Utopia Sprawl. They seem to be playing a mix of regular forests and snow-covered forests. And they could still activate Bill's ability, but yeah, that leaves them tapped out. And Mutavault can also help, because it's both an elf and a halfling. So Mutavault can activate itself. So Priest taps for 3. Cast the Hobbits. And so they make 4 mana each, so I can actually play Emrakul here if I'd like. So am I going to have enough to cast both? 12, 13, 14, 15. And this is basically going to cost me 4 mana. So I'm 1 short of casting both. Alright, in that case, I guess Emrakul is the better one here, and then we can also give it haste. Emrakul gains haste. Attack you for 12. And then it's probably a good idea to leave the Lightning Greaves on Emrakul, in case our opponent can somehow destroy it. Even pick your poison, we can sack the Birds of Paradise instead. So I can't think of too many answers. And our opponent explodes. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Fin Fang Foom, a red land destruction deck. So a card like Utopia Sprawl is pretty bad in the matchup. Yeah, this hand is probably not going to work out. Once again, Utopia Sprawl shows up, but at least it's joined by some other reasonable ramp. And then Green Suns could be our big finisher. For now, play Library. Could also draw with it next turn if we'd like. If we want to play a grindier game, not sure if that benefits me. I could just go for speed. But then if they have a sweeper for the Hobbits, we're also in trouble. So maybe it is still fine to draw for now. And then I'll wait on playing Utopia Sprawl, so I can activate Library again next turn. And then we can maybe double spell. So they will be able to play turn 3 Fin. Alright, so step 1, play a land. Then activate Library. And then Utopia Sprawl into the north. So then next turn I get to cast the Notary Hobbits. While still maybe drawing with Library. Or we could go for a Panharmonicon first. Yeah, I mean, if we're playing the value game, we might as well go all the way here. So Lotus Cobra into a land, into Panharmonicon. And time for them to blow up my lands. Now, of course, Fin Fang Foom also good at destroying artifacts. It's possible they can blow up the Panharmonicon here. Alright, it's going to be a Boomy Bash. Can only destroy non-basics, so they did not have a target for the second copy, luckily. Badger Mole to draw. Okay. Don't think we need to play Badger Mole Cub, because they're already incentivized to cast a sweeper. And if they don't, they should be pretty dead. Okay, maybe Green Suns for Regal Force if we want to have some more fun. As opposed to... yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Nibelheim, they can also flash back, so we're gonna have to beat it twice. That's extra rough. And Finn is beating us down in the meantime. Alright, I guess we go Beast Whisper into Badger Mole. Because, yeah, next turn they already have the mana to flash this back. So, replaying the Hobbits would not really help. And then does it make sense to Earthbend onto this land, maybe? And then the untapped one as well. Okay, and then don't think I want a green suns here. So I'm hoping they flash back their sweeper, and then next turn we maybe still have a turn to deploy the hobbits and reap the rewards. This time they're gonna deal with my artifacts. So then we're taking 7 in the air. They did not wipe the board, they just went face. If I draw a haste enabler, I could still do some damage here with the hobbits. Although, what about the Green Suns getting a Crater Hoof? Because we have a lot of mana here. This is 8. So this is 10. Can get Crater Hoof, have 3 attackers. All getting +5/+5. Yeah, that should suffice. So yeah, we wanted to go for the fun play with Panharmonicon into maybe getting a Regal Force to draw a ton of cards. But yeah, of course against the land destruction deck that was unlikely to work out. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play and we're running into the mirror here. So being on the play with a good draw is certainly important, and this hand delivers. Can potentially run out the Parallel Lives first to double our tokens and then make even more hobbits. Could be overkill, since I don't expect much removal, so then just getting the hobbits in play before my opponent is probably all we need, when Tooth and Nail can likely end the game. Flare of Cultivation's interesting too. So I can go Innkeeper. And then Elven Passage while it's tapped. And then I could sack the birds to play the flare. Yeah, that's probably okay. It's not a necessity. Could also sack the Innkeeper, although then we lose out on a halfling. Maybe that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Still got a treasure out of it. And then I'll just fetch now. So we are in a position to play the Notary Hobbits next turn. Or if we want to have some fun, we could go for Parallel Lives first. Although, of course, green is good at destroying enchantments as well. Green Suns for 2, probably getting a Badger Mole Cub. Yeah. So if I go for Parallel Lives, our opponent gets to play their Notary Hobbits, and then we're basically a turn behind. So I cannot afford to do that. What I can do is play the Notary Hobbits, and then next turn with Nykthos, we'll have all the mana we'll need to entwine a Tooth and Nail. And our opponent has 6 mana here at most. So no way to give the Notary Hobbits haste. But they do have their own Innkeeper. So they've got more halflings on the battlefield than we do. And Shang-Chi a little late to the party. So yeah, get to activate Nykthos, maybe after playing Shang-Chi. And then what to do with Tooth and Nail. Opponent does keep holding priority, I'm not sure for what. Maybe a Force of Vigor. Could hit my treasure. But yeah, just entwine Tooth and Nail. And then one creature's Crater Hoof, the other something with good stats. Maybe Galactus can exile something. Because yeah, the Eldrazi do not get to trigger if I put them in play. Summon Bahamut's also a good one. Yeah, nothing else really has haste. So I guess I could go for Roaming Throne. And then Craterhoof triggers twice. That's kind of neat. If we name Beast here. That's one way to do it. And our opponent scoops it up. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Elrond, Moonreader. So our opponent gets to draw a whole bunch of cards when using their creatures. Our hand is okay. It's lacking maybe an extra land, no 1-mana accelerant. But we do have an extra halfling, which helps. And then the Explorer is another shapeshifter, so a lot of support for the Hobbits if we can get them in play. Now an Artificer. So yeah, Elrond is gonna get to do a lot of work. This turn can start with a Leafkin or Shared Roots. Once we get to 4 creatures, a Leafkin taps for 2. So now we could go Innkeeper plus Mutable Explorer. And then next turn we're in a position to cast a Notary Hobbits. Maskwood Nexus is a little excessive when half of our board is already technically a halfling. Opponent may be forgetting to activate the Artificer to draw a card end of turn. And the Liquid Metal Coating can turn stuff into artifacts. Elrond attacks, opponent keeping up 2 mana here, which could be for the fairy, possible they're holding a counterspell. Parallel Lives could be a good one to play in the meantime, just so we can go off even harder with the Hobbits. Although playing it right now would already be very effective. But yeah, assuming our opponent's got a counterspell, maybe we'll take it slow. And then play the Parallel Lives plus Shared Roots. Opponent did have a counterspell. And then could attack, but I don't know if the 2 damage is really gonna matter. Well, we can try again next turn. Play our commander. Now Karn can shut down artifacts, including ones they can generate with a liquid metal coating, so they could also turn my land into an artifact and then use Karn to blow it up. But now the coast is clear for the Notary Hobbits. Of course, no sideboard in Brawl, so Karn is not gonna get to use a -2. But yeah, it's still land destruction. They just happen to draw into the liquid metal coating. But we were also lucky that our deck doesn't rely on mana artifacts. So play Notary Hobbits. And then I can Rhythm for X equals 1 here, which may still be worth it. Because yeah, next turn we get 1,000,000 mana if we get to untap with our Hobbits anyway. I guess that's a reason to maybe wait on Rhythm, so we can cast it twice for X equals a lethal amount. So yeah, the Hobbits now generate 15 mana. Opponent's going to coating my lands. I probably actually should have activated my Mutavault in response, because then Karn would not have been able to blow it up, because it says non-creature artifact. So yeah, that was a misstep. And once the coating applies, I can no longer activate it, because then it's an artifact that's shut down. So I missed my window to activate the Mutavault. Alright, opponent keeps drawing. So possible they have more counter spells available. And I'll lose life for now. Well, Emrakul's quite the draw as well. So we can start by casting Emrakul. And then I can still rhythm for a lot. See if there's a response. Opponent just untapping the fairy to draw. Okay, and then I can rhythm for up to 10. No real point in playing the Masquid first, is there? I can tap 1 Notary. I would generate 2 additional ones. Yeah, I guess if the goal is rhythm for 8, I may as well play the Masquid first. And get Craterhoof. And then I'm guessing this is enough. If not, we get to take the opponent's next turn, so we can probably mess them up pretty badly. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing a Mythweaver, so monogreen landfall. Our deck can certainly go over the top, if we find a curve topper, that is. This hand is great at getting started. Shang-Chi and Drawbridge are a bit redundant, and then we're missing a curve topper. So keeping this is certainly risky if we never find something expensive. So I might want to take a mulligan, since I think the matchup is good enough where we don't need to take any unnecessary risk. Okay, this hand's not perfect, but it's still quite good. Turn 1 Elvish Mystic, and then next turn we get to Utopia Sprawl, maybe into Rofellos. Opponent with her own Llanowar Elves. Well, there's our curve topper. So Rofellos only taps for 1 at the moment. Could also go for Provisioner, although we're out of lands in hand. So yeah, maybe Rofellos is still the play. And then hope to draw Forest next turn. Although, I guess regardless, we get to play the Hobbits next turn. And we'll name Halfling. Could have also cast Green Suns for 1 to get the 1 mana Halfling, just to increase our count for the Notary Hobbits. Okay, found a fetch land, so I can go Provisioner, play the fetch. That'll make 2 treasure, Rofellos taps for 2, so then I can still play the Notary Hobbits afterwards. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Alternatively, I can Green Suns for Shang-Chi, and then next turn I'll be able to tap the Hobbits for mana right away. Although I don't think that immediately casts Emrakul. Because yeah, I would be able to play the Hobbits. That's 9 mana, 10, 11, 12, 13. So unless I draw forests, I would not quite get there. So let's just play the Hobbits now. And then next turn I should have enough for Emrakul. Okay, opponent with the Birds of Paradise wants to wait to play Mythweaver and maybe a fetch land in the same turn. But yeah, Emrakul is looking mighty fine. And then we can save the Green Suns to get another finisher as opposed to using it for more setup. But yeah, there's not many cards that will save our opponent from an Emrakul trigger. So opponent is targeting stuff. Alright, and our opponent explodes. Fair enough. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Thorin, King of Durin's Folk. So a red-white Dwarves deck. Our hand's decent. This is the type of hand that can curve into Parallel Lives before playing the Notary Hobbits without feeling bad about it. And then we've got the 10 Rings and Green Suns as a mana sink. The Master Smith for double strike could hit pretty hard. And then with Yavimaya, we don't have to sacrifice our fetch lands to tap them for mana, at least. Don't expect a Dwarf deck to have many sweepers, at least. And our opponent conjuring the 7 Dwarves. Okay, so we'll go ahead and play Parallel Lives. Going for Green Suns, X equals 2 to get our Shang-Chi would also make sense, because then we could play the Hobbits, immediately tap them for 9 mana to cast the 10 Rings, but a Shang-Chi would also be susceptible to spot removal. So yeah, let's just go big here. Don't often get the chance to play Parallel Lives. Barbarian could have also destroyed an artifact, such as the 10 Rings. And Primeval Titan could also be effective, but we're here for the Hobbits. Opponent does have a Swords to Plowshares, that's fine. Still gets 4 tokens, so those make 16 mana combined. And Blacksmith can make an Axe token. They did find a Sword of Feast and Famine, which is pretty good against us, but yeah, we can take a hit. And then next turn we should not have any trouble crossing the finish line. So yeah, we've got mana plenty, could play the 10 Rings. In fact, I could even play the Hobbits a second time, since that'll actually generate more mana for us overall, with all the extra tokens. So these tap for 9 mana each. So we can play Primeval Titan, and then still Green Suns for something nice. And then here shouldn't matter too much. Is there anything spicy we can get? Like a Nykthos or a Sanctum of Ugin could be nice. Mutavault also adds an extra halfling. And then it's boring, but it is effective. And Green Suns for 8 and get Crater of Behemoth. And that'll do it. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Jackal, a genius geneticist. Used to go by a different name, but yeah, our hand seems fine. Got a bunch of mana elves and then Shang-Chi to help our creatures tap for mana right away. We are missing a Curve Topper, so if we never find something expensive to cast with all the mana, then there's not much point in generating it. But yeah, hopefully our deck is kind to us. Can save the fetch land since we have an elf to behold, in case we find some landfall payoffs. Maskwood Nexus can also serve as a mana sink if needed. And yeah, can play Priest of Titania, or we can start with Shang-Chi and then next turn play both mana elves out. Opponent plays Jackal into Haywire, so that can be an answer to my Maskwood Nexus. So not incentivized to run it out, although Ugin was a great top deck. So just my elf in circulation. So yeah, go ahead and play a Leafkin into Priest of Titania. Beholden Elf. And play it. No attacks for now. So then next turn we can play the Hobbits. Would also give me an extra creature for Leafkin to tap for 2. So then 2 plus 9 is 11. So I can play Ugin, Maskwood, another way to trigger Ugin to exile something else. Opponent now with Ozolith into Cankerbloom. So they get an extra copy. Alright, so we've got some cleaning up to do. But we can stick to the plan. Play the Hobbits. And then first cast Ugin. Exile Jackal. And our opponent has already seen enough, but yeah, we could still follow it up with a Maskwood. Ugin gets to draw, and then we should be in a pretty comfortable position. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Belladonna Took, so a white tokens deck. Will it be Heir Apparent or something more original? This hand's certainly keepable. Turn 1 Utopia Sprawl, turn 2 Pilgrimage. And then Sire of Seven Deaths is not our scariest finisher, but it's something we can potentially cast if we can give our Hobbits haste with the colorless mana. Another card worth considering in that slot is a Cityscape Leveler to blow stuff up. But sometimes you want a tutor for lifelink, so then it's nice to have Sire available in the deck. Opponent with a Paladin class to maybe eventually pump up their tokens. And then Belladonna gets better the more creatures they can play. Alright, well, we've got a turn 3 Notary Hobbits on the play, so we'll see if they have an answer. I wouldn't expect a tokens deck to have any sweepers, and 1/1 removal only gets used so far. It's going to be an Ocelot Pride, which will gain a life here, I believe. Oh no, it's only when a token enters. So they'll have to wait for that. And get to untap. And yeah, casting an Ulamog seems pretty fun here. How many counters do we get? Their curve may not be incredibly high, so maybe only 4 or 5. Still 7. Alright, I'm curious to see what that is. Could Rhythm for 3 and get something like a Chomping Changeling to blow up Paladin class. Is that necessary? Might prefer keeping it as a finisher, although a Changeling is still an extra halfling, so maybe worth it. Could have also done this before casting Ulamog to make a bit more mana. Don't think it would have mattered. Opponent with a free spell here. I guess Solitude would make sense, yeah. So they have an answer to Ulamog. Sacrifice 2 permanents, including Solitude itself and the Paladin class. Alright, so now I'm no longer interested in Chomping Changeling. I could get Immutable Explorer. I could get... what else makes sense? Just get Nissa. Yeah, I guess Mutable Explorer's fine. Doesn't stop the Ocelot Pride, but does add 2 more halfling creatures on the battlefield. So then the goal is to Rhythm for a large number. And Gideon can make tokens. And now the Ocelot will double them. yeah, Solitude was a very nice one. Okay, so animate Immutavault and generates 2 extra mana basically. And then, yeah, I imagine Nature's Rhythm for something like a Crater Hoof is going to be pretty good here. So this is 11 mana, so I'll need to tap 1 more Hobbit. And then can I play Sire? And that can help for Nature's Rhythm as well. So then 8 is enough. Could also get something else, but pretty sure Crater Hoof is lethal. Points at 27. We'll have 7 creatures on the battlefield, 4 of which can attack. So that's already 28 plus a little bit more. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Raph and Mikey, Troublemakers once again. So this hand has the early acceleration covered, but does not have any finisher, which we will need, so I'm afraid this is a mulligan. This time we have the finishers, a bit light on early ramp, but yeah, we'll have to make do. Can always finale to get a mana elf on turn 3. Ugin, not the best card in the face of Raph and Mikey, since it's not going to be on the battlefield, presumably, by the time we can cast our Planeswalker. But then Emrakul should be very effective once we get to it. So then finally get Bantermole Cub, probably the most powerful option for 2. It's somewhat equivalent to getting Delighted Halfling in terms of making extra mana with Notary Hobbits. Panharmonicon is also pretty cute here. Is that better? I mean, it does generate more mana. I could also go for Shang-Chi actually, since we have the mana to play the Hobbits, so then I can immediately cast Ugin next turn. Yeah, that's probably even better. If I didn't have my 5th mana source available, then I would want to keep ramping. So then it is possible that they can take out Ugin the turn after I cast it. But hopefully it'll have soaked up an attack at least. And then we should be in a position where we can cast Emrakul. Delighted Halfling, still a great draw, since I can cast it. Immediately make mana, and then now the Notary Hobbits actually produce enough to cast Emrakul on the spot. That was incredibly lucky. Cast Emrakul, take the opponent's turn, and yeah, we can mess them up pretty badly. Do we get to take their turn? We do not, sadly. Otherwise we could have cast some of their ramp spells and then failed to find any lands. They even had both Entish Restoration and Roiling Regrowth, so we could have sacrificed 2 of their lands and then not put any lands in play, so it's understandable why they conceded. Alright, we're on the play, facing Zurgo, Thunder's Decree, so a Mobilize tokens deck. Our hand is reasonable, definitely could use an extra land or 2, but we'll give it a try. Mardu also known for having a lot of creature removal in these colors, so my mana creatures are not guaranteed to survive. Ideally we can save the fetch for after we play Lotus Cobra, but we'll see here. Alright, perfect. So then this turn Fanatic, next turn I can go Cobra plus Elixir. Could have also tried Cobra on 2, and then with the fetch we could have played the Hobbits on 3. But again, trying to play around removal a bit better. And then Yeah, I guess we don't even need to play the fetch land right now. Can go Cobra, Nykthos, play Elixir. And then next turn we can immediately tap the Hobbits for mana to cast Portal to Phyrexia if we'd like. And as long as one of my 2 creatures lives, we're good. Uh-oh, is this a Kolaghan's command? No, it's an Anim Pakal. I was getting worried for a second. So yeah, we'll just take the hit. And Beast Whisper the draw. So play my fetch, make a mana. Don't have to sacrifice a fetch land right now, but I guess we'll get it out of the way here. And then the Elixir can also untap target creatures, so that's another way of making extra mana. Let's see. I do not want to tap Nykthos if I can avoid it, since we'll increase our devotion even more. Alright, so then these can tap for 3. In turn, I can activate Nykthos, play the Nexus before tapping another one of them, because now we have more Hobbits on the battlefield. Can untap them. And then play Portal to Phyrexia. And then I can still activate Maskwood Nexus and play Beast Whisper. Or I guess never mind, I don't have enough green mana for Beast Whisper. That's fine, we'll save that for next turn. It's a pretty good turn. So yeah, could have certainly sequenced in such a way to play the Beast Whisper, but maybe it's correct to keep it in hand in case of a board wipe. Agros Kos can suspect one of our creatures. We get Anim Pakal back. Draw Fabled Passage. And yeah, opponent's already too far behind. So yeah, we got to see the Notary Hobbits in action, and judging from the art, you would not be able to tell that they hide some of the biggest monstrosities known to Magic. But yeah, this commander is incredibly effective at casting all these huge Eldrazi, especially if we can give them haste and even cast them on that very same turn. So yeah, this commander is certainly up there with the likes of Rofellos when it comes to generating a ton of mana. It's less susceptible to spot removal, since it's split up into 3 bodies, a bit weaker to sweeper effects and counter spells than something like Rofellos, as of course they can run out their commander a bit sooner. But yeah, nonetheless, a very powerful commander, and yeah, if you want to cast some Eldrazi, this is the way to do it. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.